Their seats, we're going to go ahead and get started. All right. Welcome to our Veterans Day program, our Veterans Day Assembly, a day that we honor those who have served this great country. So let's begin in prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, today we honor our veterans, worthy men and women who have given their best when they were called upon to serve and protect their country. We pray that you will bless them for their unselfish service in this continual struggle to preserve our freedoms, our safety, and our country's heritage for all of us. Bless them abundantly for the hardships that they faced, for the sacrifices they made, for their many different contributions to America's victories over tyranny and oppression. We respect them, we thank them, we honor them, and we are proud of them. We pray that you will watch over these special people and bless them with peace and happiness. In your name, amen. All right, well, we're going to, in a moment, we're going to begin with the national anthem. But before we do that, we're going to kind of go over a little bit of the history of the national anthem. So you can take the teacher out of the classroom, but you can't take the teacher out of the person. So a little bit of information. So the words of the Star-Spangled Banner, as it was called, were written during the War of 1812. And the War of 1812 a lot of times was referred to as the Second War for Independence because we went up against Britain again. And so in 1814, just about a month after Britain had come in and they had set fire to the White House, the Capitol, other government buildings, Francis Scott Key, who was an attorney, he was aboard a British vessel and he was negotiating the release of a friend who was being held prisoner. During Key's time aboard the vessel, the British commenced an attack on Fort McHenry. And the pair, his friend and himself, were not allowed to leave the ship. So Key and his friend watched from the ship as the soldiers at Fort McHenry withstood some 25 hours of British bombardment. Key was certain that the American fort was doomed. But he was shocked in the early morning light when it revealed that the American flag was still there.
Recording stopped.
Still aboard the British vessel, Key began to pen the words that would eventually would become the American national anthem. Now, there are actually 4 verses to the national anthem. Do you guys know that? But we only know the first verse. And that's the first verse that we sing. That's the first verse that we are very familiar with. So let's take a look at the words really quick. So that very first line, "Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed as the twilight's last gleaming?" You'll notice that's a question. And that was the question that Key was asking. Will we, when the sun comes up again, will we see that flag? Because if we don't see that flag, that means the fort was taken. Will we see that flag in the twilight's last gleaming, the twilight right before the break of day? Second line, "Whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watch were so gallantly streaming?" So the stripes and the stars, right? The stars and the stripes, they were still flying. Perilous fight. Perilous. You guys, perilous? Dangerous. Awful. The ramparts. It's a defensive wall of fortification. They were watching over the walls of the fort. And the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. So as the bombs were exploding, there's these flickers of light that they could see in the night. They could still see it flickering throughout the night. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave, or the land of the free and the home of the brave? In this very final line, Key asks one last time if the flag is still there, waving over a country born from revolution and still fighting to maintain its hard-won freedom. And that's what our veterans do. That's what our people who serve do. They fight to maintain our hard-won freedom. So I would invite Radiance to the stage. Radiance is our choral group. And as they are coming to the stage, I would like to just kind of go over. When we sing the national anthem, we stand at attention and respect for those who fought who can no longer stand. We face the flag. We remove any headgear. You are to have nothing in your hands other than your hat during the song. So none of you should have your phones, but at like a game, your phone needs to be put away. You should have nothing in your hands. We should not be eating. You should not be drinking during the song. If you are chewing gum, you stop chewing until the song is over. Put your right hand over your heart, and it's only those who have served or who are currently serving who salute. You may sing along, or you may stand quietly facing the flag. And when the anthem is over, it is not appropriate to clap. The performers are leading the audience in singing the hymn, not performing it for their own recognition or applause. So, with that in mind, please rise, face the flag, hats off, hands over your heart.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
All right, so what is Veterans Day? More than a century ago, World War I ended, and an armistice, which was a truce, was signed at 11 a.m. on November 11th in 1918. In 1919, President Wilson proclaimed November 11th as the first commemoration of Armistice Day to celebrate and observe the end of hostilities of World War I and honor those who served in the war to end all wars. It was called Armistice Day. In 1954, President Dwight D. Eisenhower signed a bill proclaiming November 11th as a day to honor all men and women who have worn the uniform of the United States Armed Forces. The president called upon Americans everywhere to rededicate themselves to the cause of peace. Veterans Day is intended to thank and honor all those who have served honorably in the military, both living and dead, whether in wartime or peace. as opposed to Memorial Day, which is a day set aside for honoring the military personnel who have died in service to their country. Here at Rapid City Christian, we would like to take a moment and recognize the people, the family members of people who have loved ones who are either serving or who have served in any of our armed forces. So if you have a family member who has served in the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, the Marine Corps, or the Coast Guard, please stand. You take a look around. There are sacrifices that have been made, not necessarily always with life, but with time away from family. And so thank you for your service, and thank you for your family's service. You may be seated. All right, we have 3 guests with us here today. 2 of them are right here, and so if I could invite up Lou Weber and Cade Porch. And we have 1 guest with us all the way from Germany. And so he's going to be joining us virtually on the screen. Hey, Christian Maud. So they are going to be introducing themselves, kind of giving you just a little bit of background. And then we're going to kind of go through some different questions. So, gentlemen, I don't know who wants to start. Oh, Christian, I guess you've been voted to start. You're going to introduce yourself. Yes. Okay, very good. All right, Kate or Lou?
All right, how about now? There we go. All right, so I am Cade Porch, and I am famous for being Ryan Porch's brother. That's my claim to fame. My connection to Rapid City Christian, obviously, I have a brother who goes here. I did the full tour here, so 6th grade through 12th grade, and I survived, so you can too. And then my mom was a teacher here. My sister graduated from here as well. Right after I graduated high school, I joined the Air Force, enlisted at the age of 18, so I'm the only enlisted member you'll hear from today. I joined I wasn't quite ready to go to college yet, so I wanted to jump into some real world experience, and it had always been, my goal to serve in the military in some capacity. So I've served in the Air Force, the active duty Air Force, and recently transitioned to the Air National Guard, so I'm currently serving part-time through that. I just hit my 5-year mark, so 5 years in service. I started out as an intelligence analyst, and when I went to the Guard, I transitioned to security forces, which does security and law enforcement on the Air Force side, so it's sort of like military police. So I've had all kinds of different training. We'll get into that a little bit more once we start answering questions. I have served in, my first duty station was Hawaii, so after training in Texas, I went to Hawaii. I was there for 3 years. I know, right? Tough first duty station. And then just recently, I got back from Qatar, I think 2 weeks ago, so I was there for 6 months. And the most surprising thing to me regarding the military, I think, is the people who you might not have a whole lot in common with that you serve with that become, your blood. They become your siblings, your brothers, your sisters. I'll pass the mic over.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Lou Weber. My connection to Rapid City Christian is I have 3 sons, one of them Leighton, who graduated from Rapid City Christian, and then I have two that are currently here in Rapid City Christian, a senior this year and a sophomore this year, and I'm sure you guys know them, so I won't make them stand up and do push-ups or any of that stuff, which would be kind of fun if you guys really want me to. Yeah. So I was 17 when I joined. I've been in the National Guard my entire career. So I joined as an enlisted soldier and did 12 years as an enlisted soldier, and then went to what we call the Officer Candidate School, and so became a commissioned officer after that. Why did I join? I don't know. My best friend in high school thought it'd be a really good idea. There's a lot more to it than that, but honestly, it was the intriguing fun that everybody thinks or sees in the movies and the TV commercials, that how fun and exciting the military can be. So I've always been in the Army National Guard. I've served 2 different states, both Iowa and the state of South Dakota. As an enlisted person, I started out as an infantryman, so did all that cool stuff that you do see in the movies, and that stuff was pretty exciting, so we had some pretty intriguing training that goes along with that. But I've also gone to the other extreme in cyber training, so I'm a signal officer, which means IT and radios and satellites and into some cyber training. So I've seen a lot of it. Actually, with all the gray hair, I mean, you might expect I've done a few things, but so I've served, a lot of places. That's one thing about the Guard. It's nice because you really are a hometown soldier. So even though I've been based out of Rapid City pretty much my entire career, I've been Panama, Nicaragua, Germany, Afghanistan, Iraq, Africa, and then we've even done stints in Georgia and Colorado Springs and things like that. So lots of opportunities, but I'd say my favorite was probably Colorado Springs. I did a 2-year tour down there at Peterson Air Force Base, which the Air Force, they know how to do it, I'll tell you what. But it was, what was great about it is that was probably the one tour that I was able to take my family with. So we really enjoyed our time down there in Colorado Springs. And I think the most surprising part after all these years is that the military really, there's a lot more to it than what you see in the movies and the commercials. I mean, there's a whole behind the scenes part of being in the military, and everybody being a team player to make sure that those guys that are doing those, like those jobs are successful. So I think that's my most surprising at this point. So, all right, back to you.
Okay. Hey, Christian, how are you related back to Rapid City Christian? I don't know. Did we mention that?
Sorry. So my oldest nephew is an alumni, Dylan Terry. And then I've also got 2 more nephews and a niece there. So Michael, Izzy, and Sammy, if you're sitting out there, they're my nieces and nephews. And then I'm also the younger brother of Miss Nikki, who I think is one of your admin personnel. So lots of time sitting and watching RCC football games from the stands when I'm back home. And then I guess to round out my bio, I was 21 when I entered active duty. I was 18, however, when I joined the Air Force Reserve Officer Training Corps. So I had a opportunity to go through college while getting Air Force training part-time. I've been in just under, almost 8.5 years now. I've been a pilot my entire time in. So just kind of the one job, but I've upgraded through that all the way up to as a weapons officer and as an evaluator pilot. So certifying other people to fly the aircraft that I fly on. Where have I served? I added this up before I got here. The Air Force has sent me to just over 25 countries. So all over. I haven't touched Antarctica or Australia. Those are the only two continents that I haven't been to. And then my most surprising thing regarding the military is I think the people. You just get such an eclectic group of people, people who are best friends with each other that probably would have never met each other in any other way. And it's just really cool to see and hang out with these guys and work with them.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. All right, so a lot of you submitted questions, and we went through all of those questions, and we have narrowed it down to just a few. Sorry, we can't take them all. So we're going to kind of do a little bit of a question and answer session here, and gentlemen, you feel free to defer to one another or, jump in on a question if you have something to say really quick with it, or kind of just an informal type of a question and answer session, okay? So the very first question is, what is something that people assume about the military that is not true? Okay, Cade?
So one thing that people assume is that every military member is out there, with a gun, digging foxholes, doing those traditional combat jobs. But in reality, I think the lieutenant colonel and myself kind of did the opposite with our careers. I started out as sort of an office guy who worked on computers a lot, did a lot of indoor, kind of normal stuff, and then I moved into a job where now I get to, shoot guns and do all the, drive around in Humvees, do all the cool military stuff. So I would say the vast majority of the jobs in the military are not combat related in any way, shape, or form. Obviously they all have aspects, but that surprised me personally.
Any other thoughts on that?
I think another thing that a lot of people assume is that you can't do it, that it's too hard. Well, it's hard, but I would tell you that it is very rewarding. And there's mechanisms in place to ensure everybody does the best they possibly can. So, I've had people, I don't have the build, or I don't have the stamina, or I couldn't do what you guys do, but you really can. I mean, it's all fortitude and perseverance and drive, and they'll help you learn a lot of that stuff. They'll help you. But I think a lot of people just think that it's, too hard of a career path to tackle. But even though it's not easy, but it's like I said, it's set up for success, and it's very rewarding. So I think that's an assumption that a lot of people have.
Christian, did you want to say anything towards that?
Yeah, I think one assumption that's out there is that the military is full of high school dropouts or people who can't find jobs, things like that, which is completely not true. Some of the smartest and brightest people I've ever met, I've worked with, they're guys that I've deployed with who have dual PhDs, and just all sorts of crazy stuff. So it's a incredibly bright group of individuals, all working together.
All right. Second question. What is one of the hardest things you've had to learn how to do? Cade?
So I've got actually three things. The first thing is just being away from home. That was the hardest part for me, especially on active duty. You know, even though I was in Hawaii, I got really, really homesick for a lot of the time. And then the other two things are getting tased and getting pepper sprayed, because both of those are pretty bad. You don't want either of those to happen to you, but it's part of the training. You know, if they want to trust you with that weapon, then you have to know how it works. So those were definitely the hardest things I've had to do.
For me, probably as a young, I had to learn how to do what I was told. No, it's, as an enlisted guy, as an infantry guy, it's very physically challenging. So, but honestly, there's a lot of truth to that, doing what you're told, because sometimes, you get some missions, and that's where your faith comes into play, that you might not know the why or what impact it's going to have. And so, you have to learn to have that faith in each other, faith in your team, faith in your leaders. And that's sometimes that's a hard thing to do. So.
I think for me it was holding my peers and stuff accountable. And what I mean by that is uh, there's a lot of rules in the military. There's a lot of this is the right way to do it, and whether or not you think it's the right way or not, those rules are there for a reason. And so just kind of being the voice there, the voice of accountability to your peers, and making sure that you're keeping your other troops and stuff in check. That was hard for me. I tend to avoid confrontation, but it all comes with the job.
All right, thank you. All right, here's a logistical question, it looks like. How are you transported into duty? Was it boat, plane, commercial plane? I think you get this one, Christian.
Yeah, so I am the transport most of the time. So the aircraft that I fly is it's a 4-engine propeller tactical airlift platform. So if you ever see the movies where the paratroopers are jumping out of the airplanes, I'm the guy in front driving it. So a lot of times, I'm taking the guys into the places or getting them out. Same goes with CASEVAC and aeromedical evacuations, things like that. We handle all of those mission sets. Yeah, I'm my own transport.
I would just tell you, from the Army side, we'll take whatever we can get. So whatever's at our disposal. One deployment, we literally drove our Humvees from Sturgis, South Dakota to Fort Carson, and that's what got us in place to ship them overseas. I've 17-hour flight from Djibouti, Africa, through Ramstein, back here on the deck of a C5 or whatever it was. It was cold as all get out. Blackhawks, helicopters, however, and that'll go into one of these down a little further about the pros and cons. But so we definitely appreciate our Air Force brethren, because they're the ones that get us in there.
So on my most recent trip to and from Qatar, we had a chartered civilian aircraft that took us to the country and back from the country. And then once we were there on the ground, we in security forces had a fleet of Ford Ranger pickups, so just kind of standard pickups, and then also up-armored Humvees. But we prefer driving the Rangers because the Humvees are pretty uncomfortable. Like, you hear, oh, driving from Sturgis to Fort Carson in a Humvee doesn't sound that bad. It would be that bad. It would not be a good time.
All right. Okay. Next question. How has your faith affected your service?
So I think one of the big impacts is it's kind of been it's sort of, when you're a Christian in a secular environment like the military, it kind of, you learn to gravitate towards and kind of make friends with people who maybe sort of share some of the same values. So I would say it's sort of affected who I hang around with. Like if I meet a good Christian group that I'm deployed with or something, then that's, kind of who I spend some time with. So to answer the question, it's just sort of affected who I've chosen to be friends with and hang out with.
I think I have found, everybody's path is different. And so I think when I first got in, my faith probably wasn't on the forefront of what I was doing. But I can tell you, that's one thing about the military is it will instill faith in you. And I can tell you that, the military's, all branches have chaplains. We have church service and we have groups, and they have been very influential through my career. And then for me, you get to a certain point in your career where you are that leader now. You are that that person that everybody looks up to or looks to you for guidance and direction. And so for me, it's the opportunity to use my faith to help others and, to build that faith in maybe somebody that has never had it exposed to them. So, yeah, it's definitely changed over the 35 years that I've been in, but it's been a big part of it. So, yeah.
Questions?
Yeah, for me, I first of all 100% agree with it definitely affects the people that you hang out with and the friends that you make. It's huge. But for me, it's the compassion piece that my faith brings in. There are times, especially when you're in difficult situations like being in Afghanistan, things like that, it's really easy to get caught up in the moment of things or the troubles and the emotions that are going on around you, and to almost kind of like lose yourself in those. And so, taking that step back and, just remembering like what our values are as Christians, especially that compassion piece, and, looking at the other people that you're working with, or the other people that you are in conflict with, and knowing and understanding that they are also humans, and that they might be lost, is help me through a lot of things, through a lot of difficult situations, especially in those deployed environments. So I think the compassion piece of my faith has been the biggest effect on my service.
Thank you. All right, so what's been the biggest pro and the biggest con of being in the branch that you are?
So I think the Air Force's pro and con is kind of the same thing. It's the Air Force tends to be run more like a corporation at times than a branch of the military. So a lot of times after duty, you're kind of left to your own devices, and it almost feels like more of an office environment at times, which can be a pro because oftentimes your free time isn't messed with as much. But it's also a con because, uh, that military structure and that, uh, I guess that sort of warrior culture that some of the other branches maybe do a little bit better, especially the Marine Corps and the Army. I think that can contribute to a closer brotherhood and sisterhood amongst the people serving. So, it's a pro and a con, or a pro and a con of being in the Air Force.
Christian, would you agree with that?
Yeah, the biggest con about the Air Force is we get made fun of the most by the other branches. um, yeah, well, I'd agree with that. The For me, at least for my job, the biggest con is um, my schedule is very uh, fluid. So um, I have days where I come home and I get to spend free time and stuff with my family. I have other days where I get a phone call and I'm running into work, and I might be headed to some other country for the next 2, 3 days, however long, I don't know. So um, that uncertainty is kind of I think one of the biggest cons of my job is there's a lot of uncertainty with it. Um, the pro though is the Air Force generally sends you to some pretty awesome spots. So, and generally in a really nice hotel. So,
It's definitely one of our cons. So I would tell you though, the biggest pro, and I actually have this even over the regular Army, is being an Army National Guard guy. We're hometown, we're communities, and that's pretty rewarding when you're responding to your communities in time of need, whether it's forest fire, flood, or something like that. We took water down to the reservation. So the Guard does things community-wise that is fantastic. It's like really no other service, not even the regular Army can touch that. So definitely a big pro in that. But the con is we're the ones that go to all those places, So even though I can tell you, the other assumption is when the Army rolls into a country, they're there to eliminate and that's a poor assumption too. We do a lot of nation building and civil type support. We never go anywhere as cool as the Air Force. We never get to go anywhere cool. It's always some third world country. But I can tell you the impact of us going there is phenomenal. So we take you have to sleep on the ground, in a water puddle because it won't quit raining. But the impact you have on those people is forever rewarding. So, yeah.
Okay, because we're just about out of time, so this is a quick answer question. If you were to go back, would you pick the same career? Yes or no?
So I would say if I were to go back and do it all over again, I would say no. I would have gone into security forces first and not been an intelligence analyst. I liked being an intelligence analyst, but at the end of the day, I think I knew what I wanted to do, and eventually I got there. So I'm happy that I did. I think I also might have started out in the Guard because active duty is really good, but I think I'm more of a Guard guy at heart. So.
Christian?
100%. I love my job. I really do. It's a great privilege, and I try to not take it for granted every day.
Okay. Did you want to say anything, Lou?
Through my career, I would have told you that I'd go Air Force. Because they always go to the cool places and they get to stay in hotels and everything like that. But ultimately, in hindsight, being in the Guard's been great, and being even an Army Guard guy has been so rewarding, and the opportunities it brings is phenomenal. So I don't think I'd change a thing. So.
All right. All right. Let's give them a big thank you. And thank you, everybody who served in any way. We appreciate you. Thank you. All right, off to class.